What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we're going to be having a look at a battle card. And I'm going to be honest with you, this battle card, it is only for Stunticons. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We have Stunticon Swagger, which is a special card just for Stunticons. Now, firstly, saying Stunticon too many times makes it sound like it's really not a real word anymore. And secondly, we still don't have any support for motorcycles. We still don't have any support for spaceships. Poor Cosmos. So, you know, maybe we get some of them soon. Might be quite nice, but that's not what we're talking about today, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are talking about Stunticons, and we are talking about Stunticon Swagger. Now, one of the most important things to note straight off the bat, this has no pip. It is one of these cards which is essentially considered so good it doesn't have a pip. Now, in a couple of different articles and interviews here or there, the designers of the game have made it fairly clear that pips are a great balancing mechanism. Bad cards have better pips, good cards have worse pips, etc, etc. And then you have a card like Mounted Missiles, which is a good card, but part of the reason why it is good is because of the double orange pips. Anyway, I digress. There are no pips here. That could be an issue. We'll talk about that in a moment. It is a utility upgrade, which can only be put onto Stunticons, and it means that your opponent cannot use bold or tough against the upgraded character. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, this is a fantastic ability on a really good card, which in theory is going to help out the Stunticons very much indeed, but in practice there are reasons not to play it. Of course, this isn't the first time we've seen Bold Hate, which is going to be coming in Wave 2. We saw Acid Storm previously, revealed by the lovely folks at TFW. I'll pop a link to that video in the description. And that essentially, when it's in bot mode, has a rather nice skill that just says your enemies can't use Bold. So it turns off bold, and it really does depend what you're playing against. Obviously, there are some decks where this is going to be really important, some decks where it isn't. If we look at something like Metroplex, firstly, it's got a skill whereby you need to flip 2 white, 2 orange, and 2 blue icons to get it rolling. And secondly, like all of the cards we see for it give it bold. Scamper gives it bold. Slammer gives it bold. And Height Advantage is technically for any Titan, but it's the only Titan we've got so far, gives it bold 4. We can look at something like Dinobots, for instance, whereby Grimlock in alt mode gives one of your Dinobots bold 3. They've got Jaws of Steel, which gives bold 2, and is exactly the same as Flamethrower, except it's a utility, not a weapon. So you can have both of them on at the same time. And then you've got Dino Chomp, which gives you bold 5. And actually, we do have Dinobot Enigma, which was revealed fairly recently, which only really works for Volcanicus, but does give it bold 2. These kind of decks love the bold, and they're not the only ones, ladies and gentlemen. They are merely 2 examples. And if you're against decks like this, turning off bold is great. As for tough, we don't see tough as often. Now, we are getting a really nice card in Wave 2, which is going to be really nice if you're the kind of person that's really trying to build up that tough as you go along. It is evasive maneuvers, it gives you tough free, it stays there for a turn. And the thing is, tough is just as viable as bold, it's just not quite as popular. But we've seen plenty of blue decks focusing on blue pips to try and protect characters, so tough will work. And what you can essentially do with a card like this is either go aggro, playing lots of bold and orange, stopping your opponent using tough, or going defensive using lots of tough or blue and stopping your opponent using bold. That's quite nice. If you're trying to prevent tough, there is an argument that this is largely like Force Field. Now, I did in a previous video refer to Force Field as a utility. That's very silly, it's clearly in armor. And it does have a white icon, but it also takes up your armor slot. So you could, in theory, have a Force Field on here and one of these. Don't really see why you would if you're trying to stop your opponent using bold, but remember this stops your opponent using tough or bold. Force Field is a good card when you're trying to protect yourself, but this card here, this whole Stunticon swagger, this helps whether you are attacking or defending, and that's why it is so gosh darn good. The other thing we need to remember here is that Menasor can kind of fit whatever playstyle you're looking for. The ability of Menasor, when you have combined up, it has bold 1 and tough 1 and pierce 1. So you can either go bold or you can go tough, and if you're going tough you want to stop bold, and if you're going bold you want to stop tough, and Stunticon Swagger here has got your back. And that's one of the things I really like about the Stunticons and Menasor as a whole. You put yourself in a position where you can go aggro, or you can go full defense, or you can go pierce, and maybe you go defense with pierce, and then Stunticon Swagger is helping you turn off your opponent's bold. It is very nice in that respect. And then, of course, you can start playing around for which one of these you actually want to use. Dead End has got tough 1, so you can use that to play around with a little bit of tough. Decepticon Drag Strip has got pierce 1, so that's going to help you out in terms of that. And if you're stopping tough, you can also take advantage of Motormaster's Alt Mode skill, which says your other characters cannot take non-attack damage from your opponent's cards. Now, we may need a ruling on this, and Wizards do now have their weekly ruling thing, so I will send this one off to them, hopefully have an update for you next week. But if we look at Motormaster in bot mode here, it says if this would defend, instead you may choose one of your other Stunticons to defend. Well, what that essentially does is just redirect the attack in its entirety, so you could redirect it to one of your Stunticons that did have Stunticon Swagger attacked, and then you would have the tough. So you can essentially put this on one of your Stunticons, and then it is protecting them, but it is also protecting Motormaster, which is a nice bonus. But there are a couple of issues here, largely revolving around the lack of pip. There are 2 of these Stunticons that want to get specific types of icons in order to use their skill. So Breakdown in alt mode, when you attack and flip at least 2 blue icons, you get +2 attack until end of turn. And Decepticon Drag Strip in alt mode, when you attack and flip at least 1 orange and 1 blue, you draw 2 cards. Now, if you are playing around here with Stunticon Swagger, and you flip that while attacking, you're not getting a blue or an orange icon, which means you are reducing the chances of being able to successfully use the skills on either of these characters. That could be a bit of an issue. Of course, you can stack your deck with enough of these pips that you still give yourself a good chance of actually using this ability, and in that case, yay! But it is something to bear in mind when you're using this. You are giving up the pips. But it's not just for these skills, because the thing is, if you want to be playing an attacking deck, you want lots of orange pips. This doesn't have any orange pips. If you want to be playing a defensive deck, you want lots of blue pips. This doesn't have any blue pips. And cards like Force Field we're fine with. They've got an orange pip. They, the first time you hit a white icon, allow you to flip an extra 2 cards when attacking or defending. This is lovely. But this doesn't have any pips. So you essentially are asking yourself the question, is it worth giving that up to turn off bold or tough? And the answer is, depends what deck you're playing against. If you're playing against Metroplex, oh my goodness, it is worth turning off bold. And as you're playing against a deck which is relying on tough, let's say double primes, which often goes blue pips, then oh my goodness, it is worth turning off tough. But otherwise, if you're not playing against a deck which is relying on bold or tough, then you do run into a fairly awkward situation that you've got the space in your deck taken up by this. And the thing is, let's say you're playing Peace Through Tyranny. Peace Through Tyranny is a very powerful card that lets you essentially KO one of your characters to take an extra turn. There are going to be plenty of games where you never get round to using it in that way. There'll be games where you do, but there'll be plenty of games where you don't. But you got the double orange pip, you're fine. Here, if you're not against bold, if you're not against tough, it doesn't do anything and you don't have the pip. Take something like Bolt of Lightning, for instance. That also doesn't have any pips, but Bolt of Lightning does 3 damage to one of your opponents. Now, to be fair, it also costs a star card, so you can't use it in everything. But here, you can always use this if you draw into it. Stunticon Swagger, there is a very real possibility it has no pips, making it useless when you're attacking or defending, and you're playing against a deck which isn't relying on bold or tough, which means it's not doing anything if you actually draw it and play it as an upgrade. It is an extremely powerful card. There is no doubt about the fact that it's a powerful card. The problem is, does it do enough against every deck to warrant the space? Because here's one of the things that we need to remember about combiners. You are essentially forced into playing the Enigma card. I mean, okay, you technically don't have to play the Enigma card, but if you want to combine, you have to play the Enigma card. So you've got to play 3 Stunticon Enigma in your deck, and you can play as many cards as you want, but essentially you want to be playing a 40-card deck, or you are bringing in inconsistencies. Now, Stunticon Enigma draws you 2 cards, which is quite nice, once you've got Menasor out, and it allows you to combine once you've got all your Stunticons in bot mode, either in play or in the KO area. But there's plenty of times in the game where Stunticon Enigma's not amazing, and it doesn't have an orange or a blue or a white pip. To then introduce this as a card which is not great against every deck and doesn't have any pips, I'm not 100% convinced. The fact of the matter is, it is a silver bullet against a whole bunch of decks. If you're playing against something like Metroplex, fine, they can find a card that gets rid of it. I don't know, let's just say ramming speed for argument's sake. But if they don't, this is a phenomenal card. If you're against a deck that relies on tough, and they're not able to get rid of it, it's a phenomenal card. I am just worried that there'll be too many times it isn't good enough. I didn't cover this in my Menasor video yesterday purely because this is a card with a lot going on that needed a lot of discussion, and to be perfectly frank, it wasn't fair to put it in that video. There was too much to talk about. And now we have. So please do make sure you tell me what you think about this card in the comment section. Go nuts! But please do remember the most important rule as always. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk Transformers and other games. But by far the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.